Hi, welcome to the workshop for episode 25 of the Great Guitar Build of 2022. And in this episode, we're going to be figuring out where we want the controls to go on the guitar and getting all the holes and everything else drilled to accept them. So the first thing we're going to need to do to establish where the controls and everything are going to go on this build is to actually do a mock-up of where everything else is going to go, and then we can kind of position the controls in the space that we've got left. Now, it occurs to me that there's not a huge amount of real estate on the top of this guitar, and the F-holes have only made that worse, but we are where we are. I'm pretty confident we can get everything on. We've only got one volume, one tone, a toggle switch and an output jack to get on, so there's not a huge amount of space needed. So just so I'm not kind of messing things up on what is quite close to being a finished sanded top, I'm just going to put a little bit of masking tape down the centre line, and then I'm going to take the plan from way back in episode 1, which seems like an awfully long time ago now, and I'm just going to take some measurements from that, which I can use to kind of rough out where the components are going to go. So that's the measurement for the bridge. That's for the centre of the bridge pickup. And that's for the centre of the neck pickup. And from there we can take a load of scrounged components and kind of lay them out in the approximate positions that they're going to go. Now, I'm pretty sure this guitar isn't going to have pickup rings, but we'll use these because I haven't got a set of pickups mucking around that I can use. And then all I'm going to do is I've got a couple of knobs, and I'll use the kind of circular nut off a selector switch just to kind of mark that. Now for me, that volume knob looks a bit crowded there, and it's not particularly well placed. Ideally, you'd perhaps want it a little bit further forward, but obviously that's just not an option. So I'm thinking there for the volume and tone, and then the selector switch underneath the F-hole, which of course, looking at that, it's not really leaving us a lot of scope for the output. So I think, and this is going to kind of create a little bit of work, but I think we're going to have to put the output on the edge of the body. To be fair, I'm not a fan of the output on the top of the body anyway. It just leads to complications of having to have weird shaped jack plugs and stuff. So putting it on the rim makes sense to me, which I think is what we're going to do. But that is going to cause a complication, and I'll show you why. Because we would want the output jack to be somewhere around here. But of course, this is a semi-hollow, so there's only 3mm of walnut on that rib and some kerfing, but the kerfing doesn't kind of go all the way through. There's a gap in the middle, so that would leave that area quite weak. And if you can imagine how many times you've been playing a guitar, stood up and you've stood on the chord and you've put a lot of stress onto that chord, you could quite easily end up damaging this part of the body. So if we are going to put it on the edge of the guitar, we're going to need to put some kind of reinforcement into this area. If I put the top back on, roughly where it's going to sit, somewhere around here, for me, looks ideal. So I'm just going to quickly mark that up. So I think what this actually means is, before we do anything else with the controls, we actually need to remove a little bit of this kerfing in that section and glue in a more substantial block of wood that's going to act to reinforce this whole area. Now that is quite a bit of work to do, and it's not without its risk, because all of this is still fairly delicate, but I think in the long run it's going to be something that's worthwhile doing and will give us a much better instrument that's going to be a bit more resilient. Okay, let's get this marked up and get some chisels out. Okay, so now we just need a little block of wood to fit in there, and to make life easier, I'm just going to make myself a very quick little template. Some blue masking tape. And then we'll find an appropriate size piece of timber and just cut that shape out on the bandsaw. Okay, so while the glue's drying on that, we can get the top back on now and just see what we're going to do about those control holes. So now that we've got one less thing to worry about on the top, we can just mark up for where we're going to put these controls. And this is quite a straightforward operation of just marking and drilling. However, you will notice this control pot is starting to drop away on here, so we might want to just alter the angle of that on the back just to bring it up a little bit more square. But I think that is about where I want my controls to go. It gives me a little bit of space around the F-hole, so I'm not going to be seeing too much of the pot or the switch through the F-hole, but it also gives me the kind of room that I'll need to operate the controls. So I'm going to say there for the switch. I'm going to say there for the volume. I'm going to say there for the tone. So I can get the rest of everything out of the way now and just get everything measured up to see what size holes we need. So the switch is coming at 11.44 millimeters, so we'll put a 12mm hole in for that. And the shafts on the pots are 9.5mm, so we'll do a 10mm hole for those. Okay, and I'm just going to poke these through with a hand drill. For the 12mm hole for the switch, I've got a Forstner bit that's the right size, and that gives me a good chance of cutting a nice clean hole through there. For these two, I'll use twist drills. I'll start with like a 6mm, and then I'm going to work my way up in 0.5mm increments, but I'll be running the drill backwards so that I'm not going to chew my way through. It will cut a nice clean hole that way. Okay, let's go. Okay, there's those 3 holes drilled out. As it happens, I kind of made sure I drilled this hole going kind of straight down, kind of ignoring the shape of the top there, and the pot actually sits in quite nicely and comes through at a decent angle, so I'm not going to have to do any work on the back there, which is great because I could do without that. Obviously these aren't the actual pots I'm going to use, these are the pots I'm borrowing off the Firebird build, so they need quite a short shaft. I'll need a slightly longer shaft on these, so I'll just order the appropriate size pots when I get round to it. So now all we need to do is just wait for that glue to dry on that little block we put in and clean it all up. Okay, that glue's fully dried now, so I just need to check just to make sure that this block is below where it needs to be. And you can see it's not. It's standing up a little bit, so I'm just going to take a block plane and just shave that down until it's where it needs to be. Okay, that planed down really nicely, so that's all below where it needs to be now, and you can actually feel, even without the top on, that that section of the body is much more substantial than what's surrounding it. So I feel a little bit more confident now about putting that jack socket through there. From here, get rid of that because we don't need it anymore. I think we're good to go with gluing this top on, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to save that till the next episode. So as always, don't forget to drop me a like if you've enjoyed this video, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.